What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Peter Parkour of the Distorted Theorists, and I am here today to do a fairly late review of A Quiet Place. Now, before I get into this, a little bit of housekeeping as always. If you are new to the channel, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We always appreciate getting some new subscribers. We love seeing that number tick up. We are currently just over 8,000, but we are doing our best to move towards 10,000 subscribers. If you are returning to the channel, as always, drop a like, hit that share button, tell your friends to subscribe to us as well. And we always love to interact with our viewers as well. So drop a comment down below to tell me, well, I guess us and everyone else, what your thoughts of A Quiet Place were. Now, as always, as I mentioned before, I am going to be reviewing A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place came out in 2018. Sorry, I have to check my notes. I'm bad at this. It came out in it's not showing me. Whatever. I want to say that it came out in 2018. There it is. 2018, it was directed by John Krasinski. Funnily enough, not his directorial debut. I thought it was. I thought it was his first time. I don't know what else he's directed prior to this. I'm assuming it may have been some episodes of Jack Ryan. Still haven't watched that. It looks to be a great show. But he also teams up with his real-life wife, Emily Blunt, to be his wife in the movie. And the movie, I'm not really giving it away. It's in the trailer, which you're going to see kind of hovering right here. It is a movie. It's a post-apocalyptic wasteland, even though it takes place about a year after an event, in which case we were invaded. The planet was invaded by creatures, which are heavily based in sound detection, and how the world, or what's left of the world, is currently dealing with that threat. But the coolest thing about this movie, and I think this was because it's touted as a horror thriller, there's a bit of action in it, but there's some heartfelt moments in the film as well. The film opens with a small or a short-term aftermath of the initial event. There is something that affects the family profoundly, and then we fast forward to where the meat of the movie takes place, as they continue to try and rebuild from the initial event. And it centers around 5 members of the Abbott family. So Emily plays Evelyn Abbott, John Krasinski plays Lee Abbott. They are the parents of the family, and they take care of Regan Abbott, who's played by Millicent Simmons, who is something about Millicent, which I'll get to in a second, Millicent and Regan is very cool, which lends to this movie as well, along with Marcus, who is their son, played by by Noah Jupe, and their other son, Bo Abbott, who's played by Cade Woodward. Now, there's a couple of other minor, very supporting characters in it that it's not that they don't matter, they're just not in the movie for very long at all. So it centers on these individuals. And the cool thing about this is what the hook of the movie is called. It's called A Quiet Place. So in essence, everyone is doing their best to stay quiet because the creatures are vicious. Any sound that they detect results in death, a chase and death, ultimately. And what I don't know if this was the original plan when the movie was dreamt up or proof of concept or whatever, but Millicent Simmons, who plays the daughter Evelyn, she in real life is deaf. She is hearing impaired, she is deaf, and in the film, her character is hearing impaired deaf. And it circles around rebuilding her cochlear implant, which I thought was really cool because for part of the movie, as much as everyone is generally trying to be quiet, there are certain sections of the film that are almost being filmed from her perspective. So when Evelyn and Lee and Marcus and everyone are running around, characters who are not hearing impaired, we still hear subtle hints of sound bare feet hitting sand, rustling in the leaves, and some other like wind and all that stuff. But when it focuses, when the perspective focuses on Regan, all you hear is muffled sound. So when it's already quiet, it's almost a complete absence of noise in general, with the odd bass sound and almost blood thumping in your own ears. This would have been an absolute joy to have seen in theaters. I don't know if it was released in IMAX at the time, but even like this is my second time watching this. I watched it when it came out, or maybe about a year after it came out, and I really enjoyed it, but I had forgotten a lot of it. So I wanted to rewatch it so I could also review Quiet Place 2 and Day 1. And watching it the second time, I still felt like it was heart-pounding when the characters ultimately had to be as quiet as they could. It's a neat hook that you don't get to see in a lot of films anymore. And there was a movie that came out, I want to say last Halloween or possibly the Halloween before. It came out on Disney Plus, and it revolves around there's no speaking in the movie. It just never comes up. There are, I believe, several characters, but no one talks in the movie. And it was really cool how that worked. You could still hear everything: doors closing, creatures screaming, explosions, fire, all that stuff, but just no one spoke. It was just not an opportunity for them to speak. In this film, there is some American Sign Language, ASL, being utilized, as well as very low frequency sounds. Now, there's a couple of things that you kind of have to accept in the movie, because like there is plot armor, or at least things are just like, we just accept that this happens. There is a part in the movie when John Krasinski is with Noah. They've gone fishing, and Noah is and Marcus is scared because he's terrified that catching the fish is going to draw attention to themselves and possibly end up in their deaths. But Lee, John Krasinski's character, kind of tells him to calm down and says, as long as the sound that we're making is it is not as loud as the surrounding noise, we're going to be left alone. Alluding to the fact that the creatures themselves, if they accept that a flowing river, a waterfall, or something else is just constantly going, then that's just, we don't need to keep investigating that, because it's not an isolated noise like someone doing it, which is fine. That's fine. But when the creatures are screaming and everything else is happening, I want to know how they're still able to figure out what else is going on. There is a large action set piece near the end of the film, and there's all these other noises happening, and that kind of doesn't translate, as well as the creatures themselves. They make these horrific screeching and yelling and roaring noises, and I was like, well, wouldn't that drown out whatever they're hunting? And I've seen part of part 2, and there's something that bothers me in that, but you'll have to wait for my other review for me to talk about that. But this is, again, a type of a bottle episode. Instead of everyone being contained in something that they can't get out of, these characters can pretty much go wherever they want. However, they're still contained within their small bubble. So we get to see interactions with these characters. I'm not going to get too much into spoilers or anything like that, but Regan feels responsible for something that she feels that she caused years ago, and she feels that her father resents her for that. And through the film, we kind of learn that she's essentially wrong, but we find out through her little journey in the film, and it results in a very emotional climax. And it's unfortunate that we don't get to explore that further, but that's kind of how sometimes films goes. If we get everything we want, then there's no real storytelling. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the film, besides the lack of sound, is how everything works with that. There's no jump scares. That's a lie. There's a couple of jump scares which I don't enjoy in films. However, in this one, it does, because they're not expected. One of them, I suppose, is, but there's one, and it's not even meant to be a jump scare. It just happens, and Jesus, I just jump out of my chair every single time. So I can appreciate well done jump scares The mood, the tone of the film is done well, and as well as some of the clever ways that the families have utilized to prevent sound being transmitted. One of the big hooks of the movie is that Emily Blunt's character, Evelyn, is pregnant. And so they are preparing for the baby, and they have a soundproof, I guess, bassinet made for the baby. There is an oxygen tank that they have to help calm the baby if they get upset. And there's all these different things around their little farmstead that they've used to prevent them making noise. Paths with sand on it. They walk barefoot, nothing crunching. There's a scene at the very beginning of the movie where they're in an abandoned convenience store or drugstore, in which case everything's been looted except for one particular aisle, which is full of potato chips. At first, when I watched that, I didn't catch on until someone mentioned it to me, or it was mentioned on a Reddit thread or something, that this aisle is still full because potato chip bags make noise, which is going to draw the creatures and kill you ultimately. As we know, the film went on to create, or at least spur, a sequel, which takes place immediately after the events of this film, as well as a prequel called Day One. Now, I know a little bit about the sequel. I actually have started to watch it, but I realized that the format that's on Paramount Plus where I'm watching it doesn't include subtitles. There are subtitles in the version of Quiet Place that I watched, which were important to the story, but with A Quiet Place 2, they were missing. So I'm rewatching that so I can do a proper review for you guys as well. And I don't know too much about Day One besides there's a cat in it, and people have used TikTok trends to try and run around with their cat to see if they would survive. The movies have done well. I hope that this doesn't become a Fast and Furious, a Saw franchise where we end up having like several different spin-offs, 8 main movies, and all these things. I would love this for this. This could have been done as a single movie, and that would have been it, and I would have been happy. I would have had questions, but not so much of like, I hope they make another movie to explain this. I would have been cool with a book, honestly. But A Quiet Place holds a special place in my heart simply for being as special as it was / is for being creative. And I think that's what made this do so well in theaters and with critics alike with John Krasinski, because we only really knew him from Jack Ryan, and let's be honest, most people know him from The Office. So it was neat to see him in a role like this. So overall, my rating of A Quiet Place is going to be pretty high. It's going to be like 8.5, 9. Now, is it stellar? No, it's just clever. But the reason that I continue to give films high ratings is, if you've watched my earlier reviews of movies, is that where I have ADHD, if it's able to keep my attention and I don't have to look at my phone and like, oh, I'm just going to look up this while I'm watching it, it's top tier in my book. And this is exactly what A Quiet Place does, especially for a second time watching this. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. 8.5, 9 out of 10. It's not stellar. I'm looking forward to getting more into the story of A Quiet Place 2 and Day One, because obviously it's going to be necessary if I want to help build that world in my head. But yeah, so that's pretty much going to be it for me. As always, if there's anything, because I'm trying to build these for you guys, I'm trying to get more fluid. I know I'm rambling with a lot of these reviews, but if you find that there's anything else that you want me to review, if there's a special movie in your heart that you're like, I wonder if Peter would enjoy this, or hate it and you want me to rip it to shreds, I'll do that too. I'm not afraid of doing anything like that. But let me know if there's anything else that you feel that this could benefit from, like a better a tier system, or like I should talk about plot, then I should talk about cast, then I should talk about cinematography. Let me know and we can go from there. But I'm going to end it there. So as always, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 10,000. We really want to hit that number before the next Sci-Fi on the Rock here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And if you are a returning viewer, make sure to hit that share, hit that like button, drop us a comment below. Tell me what you want to see. Tell me what you didn't want to see. I'm going to read it anyways, and we can go from there. So As always, I am Peter Parkour of the Distorted Theorists, and like we always say around here, keep it real.